Sacred Texts. The Laws of Manu. Chapter 1. The great sages approached Manu, who was seated with a collected mind, and, having duly worshipped him, spoke as follows. Deign, Divine One, to declare to us precisely and in due order the sacred laws of each of the four chief castes, Varna, and of the intermediate ones. For thou, O Lord, alone knowest the purport, that is, the rights, and the knowledge of the soul, taught, in this whole ordinance of the self-existent, Svayambhu, which is unknowable and unfathomable. He, whose power is measureless, being thus asked by the high-minded great sages, duly honored them, and answered, Listen. This universe existed in the shape of darkness, unperceived, destitute of distinctive marks, unattainable by reasoning, unknowable, wholly immersed, as it were, in deep sleep. Then the divine self-existent, Svayambhu, himself, indiscernible, but, making, all, this, the great elements and the rest, discernible, appeared with irresistible, creative, power, dispelling the darkness. He who can be perceived by the internal organ, alone, who is subtle, indiscernible, and eternal, who contains all created beings and is inconceivable, shone forth of his own will. He, desiring to produce beings of many kinds from his own body, first with a thought created the waters, and placed his seed in them. That seed became a golden egg, in brilliance equal to the sun. In that egg, he himself was born as Braham, the progenitor of the whole world. The waters are called Nara, for the waters are, indeed, the offspring of Nara, as they were his first residence. Ayana, he thence is named Narayana. From that first cause, which is indiscernible, eternal, and both real and unreal, was produced that male, Purusha, who is famed in this world, under the appellation of Braham. The Divine One resided in that egg during a whole year, then he himself by his thought, alone, divided it into two halves. And out of those two halves he formed heaven and earth, between them the middle sphere, the 8 points of the horizon, and the eternal abode of the waters. From himself, Atmana, he also drew forth the mind, which is both real and unreal, likewise from the mind egoism, which possesses the function of self-consciousness, and is lordly. Moreover, the Great One, the soul, and all products, affected by the three qualities, and, in their order, the 5 organs which perceive the objects of sensation. But, joining minute particles even of those 6, which possess measureless power, with particles of himself, he created all beings. Because those 6 kinds of minute particles, which form the Creator's frame, enter Ashri, these creatures, therefore the wise call his frame Sarira, the body. That the great elements enter, together with their functions in the mind, through its minute parts the framer of all beings, the imperishable one. But from minute body, framing, particles of these 7 very powerful Purushas springs this world, the perishable from the imperishable. Among them each succeeding element acquires the quality of the preceding one, and whatever place, in the sequence, each of them occupies, even so many qualities it is declared to possess. But in the beginning he assigned their several names, actions, and conditions to all created beings, even according to the words of the Veda. He, the Lord, also created the class of the gods, who are endowed with life, and whose nature is action, and the subtle class of the Satyas, and the eternal sacrifice. But from fire, wind, and the sun he drew forth the threefold eternal Veda, called Rik, Yagas, and Saman, for the due performance of the sacrifice. Time and the divisions of time, the lunar mentions and the planets, the rivers, the oceans, the mountains, plains, and uneven ground. Austerity, speech, pleasure, desire, and anger, this whole creation he likewise produced, as he desired to call these beings into existence. Moreover, in order to distinguish actions, he separated merit from demerit, and he caused the creatures to be affected by the pairs of opposites, such as pain and pleasure. But with the minute perishable particles of the 5 elements, which have been mentioned, this whole world is framed in due order. But to whatever course of action the Lord at first appointed each kind of beings, that alone it has spontaneously adopted in each succeeding creation. Whatever He assigned to each at the first creation, noxiousness or harmlessness, gentleness or ferocity, virtue or sin, truth or falsehood, that clung, afterwards, spontaneously to it. As at the change of the seasons each season of its own accord assumes its distinctive marks, even so corporeal beings resume in new births their appointed course of action. But for the sake of the prosperity of the worlds He caused the Brahmana, the Kshatriya, the Vaishya, and the Sudra to proceed from His mouth, His arms, His thighs, and His feet. Dividing His own body, the Lord became half male and half female. With that female, He produced Virag. But know me, O most holy among the twice born, to be the creator of this whole world, whom that male, Virag, himself produced, having performed austerities. Then I, desiring to produce created beings, performed very difficult austerities, and, thereby, called into existence 10 great sages, lords of created beings. Mariki, Atari, Andras, Pulastya, Pulaha, Kratu, Prakitas, Vasishta, Brigu, and Narada. They created 7 other manas possessing great brilliancy, gods and classes of gods and great sages of measureless power. Yakshas, the servants of Kupra, the demons called Rakshasas and Pisagas, Gandharvas, or musicians of the gods, Apsaras, the dancers of the gods, Asuras, the snake deities called Nagas and Serpas, the bird deities called Suparnas, and the several classes of the Manis. Lightnings, thunderbolts and clouds, imperfect, Rahita, and perfect trained bows, falling meteors, supranational noises, comets, and heavenly lights of many kinds. Horse-faced, kinnaras, monkeys, fishes, birds of many kinds, cattle, deer, men, and carnivorous beasts with 2 rows of teeth. Small and large worms and beetles, moths, lice, flies, bugs, all stinging and biting insects, and the several kinds of immovable things. Thus was this whole creation, both the immovable and the movable, produced by those high-minded ones by means of austerities and at my command, each being, according to the results of its actions. But whatever act is stated to belong to each of those creatures here below, that I will truly declare to you, as well as their order in respect to birth. Cattle, deer, carnivorous beasts with 2 rows of teeth, Rakshasas, Pisagas, and men are born from the womb. From eggs are born birds, snakes, crocodiles, fishes, tortoises, as well as similar terrestrial and aquatic animals. From hot moisture spring stinging and biting insects, lice, flies, bugs, and all other creatures of that kind which are produced by heat. All plants, propagated by seed or by slips, grow from shoots. Annual plants are those which, bearing many flowers and fruits, perish after the ripening of their fruit. Those trees, which bear fruit without flowers, are called Vanaspati, lords of the forest, but those which bear both flowers and fruit are called Vriksha. But the various plants with many stalks, growing from one or several roots, the different kinds of grasses, the climbing plants and the creepers spring all from seed or from slips. These plants, which are surrounded by multiform darkness, the result of their acts, in former existences, possess internal consciousness and experience pleasure and pain. The various conditions in this always terrible and constantly changing circle of births and deaths to which created beings are subject, are stated to begin with, that of Braham, and to end fault with, that of these, just mentioned immovable creatures.